Okay, good morning and welcome to the mock virtual meeting of Great Pipping Parish Council. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and start Zoom application. So open that up and go to meetings, and there's the meeting that we've already got set up, Great Pipping Parish Council meeting starting this morning. So I'll go ahead and click start on that meeting. There we go. So straight away Zoom is telling me that there's two people that have entered the waiting room for this meeting. So we've got it set up that people can't come straight into the council chamber, as it were. They have to go into the waiting room first, and as meeting host I will go and collect them from the waiting room. So I can go ahead and click on see waiting room. That will bring up a list of participants on the right hand side. And here I can see that there are two people waiting in the waiting room, and I can admit or remove them. So this is a protection if anybody inappropriate tries to access the council meeting. We have the opportunity to deal with them here. Of course we may not know, all you see is a name and the fact that they're a guest. So I'm going to go ahead and admit Peter and admit Paul Thomas and admit John Marshall. And as I admit those people from the waiting room, you'll see them appear on the screen here. And there they are, gradually connecting. Morning, John. Morning, Leslie. Morning, John.
Morning.
Can you hear me?
I can, John, yes.
Good.
A little bit quiet and we can only just see your head. Can you move your microphone?
Yeah, I'm going to move. I'm just going to...
Oh, that's much better.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure about that, but I know what you mean.
So as people are coming in, they're coming into the guest room, and then I'm admitting them into the council chamber.
You're in SNC again?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Hello, Marie.
Morning, Marie. You're muted.
Hello.
Morning.
How are you?
Much better now.
And
thank you.
Paul, I can see that you've joined, but I can't see you at the moment. Can you start your video, Paul?
I can see a square for Peter Allen as well.
There you go.
Can you see me?
I can't see you yet, Peter, no.
Oh, no, I can't see me. I'm up there with a little icon.
Where you belong.
But I'm not there.
Peter, in the bottom, are you on a desktop computer, Peter?
No, a laptop.
A laptop. In the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, can you see two buttons, one that says mute, unmute, and one that says video or stop video?
Yeah, stop video.
Has that got a line across it?
No.
Okay.
Let me turn it off and turn it back on again.
There you go.
Ah, I'm here. Ah, I don't know if
you.
that really improves things, but can you see me?
We can see you,
You
yes.
can.
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
looks like you haven't moved all week, Peter.
Oh, yeah.
And I can see somebody who's just joined from a mobile. Is that you, Mike?
He's muted.
Oh, hang on a second. Let me just unmute Mike.
Gary was on his mobile last time.
Mike, is that you on the mobile?
Yes, it is.
Hello, Mike. How are you?
Shall we change our screen names to our councillor names for the purpose of this meeting?
Yes, please. Good morning, Liz. Are you well? Hang on a second, Liz. Let me just unmute you. There you go. How are you, Liz?
Thank you. Good morning, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much.
Are you back in SNC again?
I am, yes. So we're just waiting for two other people to join.
I'll most probably mute myself unless I'm actually speaking, because the traffic is catching up, I think.
Yeah. When everybody's joined, I'll go through a few instructions, but we're going to be muted by default anyway, so...
Right, okay. So I don't have to keep doing it.
So that's all fine.
Danny?
Yes, Mike?
One of the issues that I've come across using this recently is the fact that Zoom exists across many platforms, at least 3, and the guidance on where to find buttons and instructions and things is different across all 3 platforms. And if you're on an iPad, for example, or an Android, you find instructions in different places, but also they are unable to do certain things that you can do on a laptop.
Indeed, yes.
So it's important, if somebody's chairing a meeting, to know that the audience out there might be on all different platforms, and so when they say bottom right hand corner you'll find, not everyone's going to see that.
No, indeed. No, which is why when Peter wasn't joined by video, the first question was, what device are you joining from? Because as you say, it's different on a Windows computer than it is on an Apple Mac or an iPad or an iPhone or whatever. I'm hoping that for councillors you'll all get used to that quite quickly. I mean, for me it is better to be able to join from a laptop or a desktop. I appreciate that not all of you have got those, but I think for councillors certainly, hopefully you'll all get used to it quite quickly. Members of the public might be slightly more difficult, but what we're mainly hoping them to do is to hear and be heard, and ideally to see and be seen. Morning, Gary. Nice of you to join us. And there's Lynn Taylor as well. Good morning, Lynn.
Oh, good morning, Danny. I had a slight problem trying to locate the link until I read I should have read the email properly.
Yep. We're potentially going to have IT issues, but we can't account for human error.
Well, I might have, because I've got dueling iPads as we speak. So, because I'm trying to look at the agenda on one iPad and I'm on this iPad talking to you. So.
Yeah, and Mike was just making the point that, you know, depending on what device you're joining on, you do get certain different buttons and different views and so on and so forth. So it will all take a bit of getting used to, but I'm hoping that we get used to it fairly quickly. We'll just give it another couple of minutes before the scheduled start of our meeting, just in case any other members of the public join. All the councillors that are going to be here are here, so that's good.
I did find when I was playing with Zoom last week that you can mute. You know, you said you can mute people and they can then quickly unmute themselves.
Yeah.
But you can actually mute people permanently.
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, I wield all
That'll
power.
be the
Whether I use it or not, we'll wait and see. So we'll make a start. So first thing, a very warm welcome to everybody to this meeting of Great Pipping Parish Council. The first announcement is that the meeting may be filmed and recorded, and because we're holding this meeting online, I think the safest thing is to assume that it will be recorded. So any member of the council or any member of the public can be recording, and we won't necessarily know whether they are or not. But the council is also recording this meeting as well. So I'll just dismiss my notification there that came up. So the meeting is being recorded, and so just bear that in mind throughout the meeting. First of all, I'm going to do a roll call of people present. So first of all, we've got Leslie Sandbrook-Smith. She's our clerk. Morning, Leslie. And then we've got Peter Allen. Can you hear me, Peter?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Thank you. Janine Day. Can you hear
Yes,
me, Janine?
I can hear you, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. John Marshall.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Marie Riley.
Hello.
Mike Scott.
Yes. Hello.
Thank you, Mike. And Lynn Taylor.
yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Lynn. And we've got 3 members of the public by the looks of the screen today with us. So a very warm welcome to you as well. And thank you very much for coming along to our online virtual meeting. So a couple of instructions first related to having a virtual meeting. So the first thing is that I have here a mute all button, and the default position is that we're going to be muted unless we're speaking. So when we get going, I will mute all, and if you wish to speak, then there are a couple of ways of indicating that. Firstly, if you click on participants, you'll see that you're able to raise your hand virtually. Again, if you are on the phone, as Councillor Scott is, Mike, you will just have to say that you want to speak, so you won't be muted during the meeting. You'll just have to shout out if you want to speak, and I'll bring you in at that point.
Okay.
For those of you that are on computers, you'll also see a button that says reactions, and for those of you that are on very small screens, you might see that under a more button, but you should find a feature that says reactions, and under that you can give a thumbs up. So use any method you wish to indicate that you wish to speak, and if all else fails, just wave in front of your camera and I'll be able to see that very easily. So indicate however you wish that you wish to speak, and you can unmute yourself at that point, or if you forget, I'll unmute you for you, and then speak, and then when you finish speaking, put yourself back on mute. That's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, to avoid too much extraneous noise coming through the microphones, but also that will be the default position for the meeting. So if anybody's unmuting themselves when they shouldn't be unmuting themselves, then that will be considered to be a disruption of the meeting if you're unmuting yourself. So I can put everybody on mute permanently if I want, and as Councillor Day was saying, then I can choose a setting that won't allow you to unmute yourself, so I would have to mute and unmute. I'm hoping that we don't need to do that. We can all respect the rules, and so I can leave it that you are able to unmute yourself at any point, and we'll see how we go in the meeting. In terms of voting for today, the most important thing is that we're able to determine the clear outcome of the vote. I think for the councillors that are here today, when I call for a vote, I think the best thing to do would be to use the reaction to give you a thumbs up. So when I ask for votes, those in favour, click your thumbs up button, and then for those against, again, thumbs up button, and for any abstention, thumbs up button. For you, Mike, you will be unmuted throughout, so if you can just call out how you vote on each item. If there is something that isn't clear, so I'm hoping that most of the items today will be fairly clear in the vote, but if something is split or it's not very clear who's voting how, then we will use as a fallback option a roll call vote. So I'll go through every councillor in alphabetical order, and one by one I'll ask you to indicate how you vote on a particular subject, just so that we can make sure that everything's absolutely clear. Regarding members of the public, we have a public participation session on the agenda this morning, and you're very welcome and encouraged to speak under that item. Any matter that you'd like to raise, we've got a total time of 15 minutes, and each individual representation a maximum of 3 minutes, but I will call you and direct you when we get to that bit for who to speak. And then if you've seen the agenda ahead of the meeting, the members of the public, then you'll note that there's an item towards the end, item 20186, for which we intend to exclude members of the public and press. At that point, I will ask you to either leave the meeting altogether, or I will move you into the waiting room where you were at the start of the meeting, and you can wait there, and then I'll bring you back into the meeting for the last item, which is to close the meeting. So if you wish to stay for that, you don't have to, but if you wish to, then you'll be in the waiting room. I imagine you'll be in there for no more than 4 or 5 minutes maximum. Okay, And then we clearly are completely dependent on internet connection and power. And so if there is a power cut or we lose the internet completely, then bear with. Our first plan would be to try to reconnect the meeting, so you can click on the link that you clicked to join this meeting in the first place, to see whether we've been able to restore the meeting. So if, for example, it was a very short power cut, a couple of seconds, then we would be able to get the computers back on. It would probably take 4 or 5 minutes to get set up again, and then the meeting will be back in progress. So if the screen goes completely blank and the electricity goes off in Great Pipping, then bear with, and when you get back up and running, try and get back into the meeting. If we're not able to recover the meeting, then we will consider the meeting adjourned at the point that we lose it, and we will consider reconvening it to transact the remaining business. So touch wood, we'll make sure that we carry on, but if there is a power cut or an internet interruption, then obviously that's beyond our control. All the councillors have their papers. You've had them electronically, so you've either got them on the screen or you've got them by you. And for members of the public, if you haven't already seen them, they are all on the website at greatpipping-pc.gov.uk, and you'll see a button on the home screen there for all today's meeting papers. Okay, are there any questions before we start? Okay, thank you very much. So I'm just going to mute all. There we go. Okay, let's make a start. So item 1 on today's agenda is item 20176, to receive and approve apologies for absence. Well, all councillors are here today, so there are no apologies for absence, and thank you very much for everybody for turning up today. Item 20177, to receive and approve for signature the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday the 12th of March 2020, and those have all been circulated in advance of the meeting. Is there any questions on the minutes before I ask for a proposal that they be signed? Thank you. Please may I have a proposer that they're signed as a true and correct record, and you can either indicate that by raising your hand. Thank you, Councillor Day, Councillor Riley. Please may I have a show of hands, all those in favour, and please indicate by raising your hand or by using the interaction. Thank you. Excellent, thank you, that's clear. So I'll now sign those minutes. So a copy of the minutes have been printed off. I'm signing them here. And then I'll return that set of signed minutes to the clerk by putting them through the post. Item 20178, to note any matters arising from the minutes not included on this agenda and for report only.
Excuse me, Chair, can I raise a point, please?
Yes, please. Yes, go ahead.
Mike Scott, Councillor Scott, is still muted, so he didn't have a chance to vote on that last section.
Thank you very much for
that. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Mike. So, Mike, you're now unmuted. So, just going back, did you have a problem with signing the minutes at all?
No, that's fine.
And we're looking at matters arising from the minutes, and I'm not having anybody indicate that there are any questions on that. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 20179, which is to receive declarations of interest under the Council's Code of Conduct related to business on this agenda. Councillor Marshall, you're indicating. Don't forget to unmute, John. There you go.
I have to declare an interest because I'm actually employed by the Sports Association as their groundsman.
Okay, thank you. So when we get to that item, I will ask you to leave the room, and again we'll do that by moving you to the waiting room and asking you to wait there whilst we transact that item of business. Thank you, John. Item 20180, public participation session. This is for any of the members of the public present to ask any question they like. Total time 15 minutes, each individual representation 3 minutes. And if you could indicate somehow if you wish to speak under this item, and then I'll call you in. So yes, Mrs. Hart.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask where I could find out any information about what the Parish Council is doing to support vulnerable people during the COVID-19 pandemic, please. I'm very worried about some of our parishioners, particularly in relation to whether or not they can get their prescriptions.
Okay, thank you for that. And the clerk has put up a page at greatpipping-dach.gov.uk/coronavirus. So that's the ordinary address of the parish council /coronavirus. And on that page you'll find all of the information relating to what the council is doing, the help that we're making available to residents, and we're also looking on there for people to volunteer to help as well. So we've had a fantastic response already, but the more the merrier. So if any volunteers wish to identify themselves, then the clerk is capturing a list of volunteers, and anybody needing help can indicate that through the website, or of course talk to any councillor or any friend of theirs who can indicate that to us through the website, and we'll make sure that the appropriate support is provided to them, either directly or using one of the agencies in the county that's set up to do that. So hopefully we've got it covered. If there are any gaps, we hope that people will identify those to us as well. But all of the information is up there, and of course that links into our Facebook page as well. I saw Mr. Thomas, you had your hand up as well, and then I'll come to Mr. Gary's iPhone.
Thank you, Chairman. I try to attend as many parish council meetings as I can as a member of the public. Often there are councillors and members of the public who are not able to attend the meetings due to work commitments, holidays, pre-planned unavailability. And I'd like to ask the council whether the use of the video meetings is a one-off due to these unprecedented times, or whether this could be a key tool for future meetings for the councils.
Oh, thank you for that question. Well, certainly the regulations that allow us to meet virtually are time limited, and I'm looking to the clerk here. I'm thinking it's to May 2021, is that correct?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, so we'll certainly use virtual meetings whilst we're not able to meet physically, but now having experimented with a couple of virtual meetings and seen how easy it is and how it facilitates interaction with members of the public, then even when we go back to having physical meetings when we're able to, I would like to explore ways that we can still broadcast or still have members of the public joining on virtual platforms, so that, as you say, they can join from wherever they are in the world and whatever they're doing at that particular time. So I think we will certainly continue with virtual meetings whilst the government's advice is that we can't have physical meetings. When the government advises that physical meetings are permissible again, I imagine that we will go back to those, but we will look to see certainly where we can bring in members of the public still on things like Zoom. But yeah, thank you for that question. And then Mr. Gary's iPhone.
Thank you, Chair. I was wanting to speak on the application of the cricket club. Okay. I think I want to speak in opposition, quite honestly, because once again, Great Billing Parish Council has shown clear favouritism to the cricket club, and I think it's about time they...
Well, just as you're speaking there, we seem to have lost your internet connection.
In the club of Snook. Pardon?
We just lost your internet connection there, or
Hello?
lost your sound and video for a second there. would you like to start again?
I will start again. Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. No, it was just to say, once again, I believe Great Pipping Parish Council has shown clear favouritism to the cricket club, and it's about time they spread the love to all other sports and voluntary organisations in the parish. I'm dismayed that the cricket club haven't sought any match funding from other organisations. They seem to think the parish council is easy money. Fill out our form and the parish council will write you a cheque. So I think there needs to be a lot more questions to ask this, and I think the cricket club need to, like every other body, needs to up their fundraising and seek alternative income streams before they come cap in hand to the parish council for more dough. So I believe the parish council should reject this grant form.
Thank you.
Sorry about the internet. Sorry about the internet connection.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. I think we got the gist of your point, and thank you very much for it.
But I do hope the parish councillors do look at this grant application with a critical eye, and tell the cricket club, like they told the football club, to seek some match funding elsewhere. So yes, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for your representation, which I'm sure all councillors have heard and will take into account when we get to that item of business on tonight's agenda. Are there any other points from members of the public before I move on with the agenda? Okay, thank you very much all for your input, and thank you for putting yourselves all back on mute as well, and for respecting that. That's very kind of you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is item 20182, to receive and note the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held on the 13th of March 2020, and you've all received your copy of the minutes. Are there any questions on that before I ask for a vote to receive? Yes, Councillor Allen. Don't forget to unmute yourself first.
How's that? Oh, right. Yes. Well, firstly, I think the Finance Committee should be thanked for all the work they've done to get us to this point. However, I've no problems with the minutes or the meeting on the 13th of March. But the 13th of March could be 100 years in the past, compared to the situation we're in now with the coronavirus epidemic shutting us all down. Does the Finance Committee plan to review the budget of the council? We've already heard requests for extra input from the parish council, and I would be interested to know if the Finance Committee would be taking that into consideration.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. I'll bring in Councillor Riley in a second, who's the chairman of the Finance Committee. But just to respond, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that's a necessity under the current circumstances. We've got an item further on down the agenda that will require a small change to the budget. But I'm just going to bring in Councillor Riley, chairman of the Finance Committee. I know there's a meeting coming up at the beginning of May. Is it the intention of the committee to review the budget at that meeting?
Absolutely, yes, of course. The coronavirus has completely changed our focus of work at the moment. Therefore, the budget needs to be reviewed and amended accordingly. So we'll be definitely going ahead with that meeting in May, and we will be seriously considering what we need to change on the budget to enable us to support Great Pipping parishioners and make sure that we can all get through this pandemic together.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So if there are no further questions...
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, could I have a proposal that the minutes be received and noted? Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Marshall. And all in favour?
In favour, Danny.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you. So those minutes are received and noted. The next item on the agenda is 20183 to adopt on the recommendation of the Finance Committee new financial regulations for the Council. These have been circulated in advance and I know that you've all read them. So if there are no questions, Councillor Marshall.
I just ask whether there are any changes to the new regulations from the previous ones.
There's no substantive changes, so you'll see on the back page a record of changes. It's just a couple of minor corrections and one or two errors that were spotted that have been amended. No substantive changes from the previous version.
So no changes to the way we do things?
No, not at this stage, no.
Okay.
Thank you. So may I have a proposal that the new financial regulations be adopted? Thank you, Councillor Day, and seconded either Councillor Riley or Councillor Allen. Sorry, I'm just going to check. I probably should have checked before now, but I just want to check with the clerk. When people are indicating on the screen, are you able to see those indications?
I am, yes.
Okay, great. I will read out the names, but if you can see them as well, that's great. Okay, so all in favour of adopting the new financial regulations as recommended by the Finance Committee? Thank you very much. That's carried.
In favour.
Thank you, Mike. And the next item is item 20184 to consider a request from Great Pipping Sports Association for a grant of £3,000 to contribute towards the cost of building practice nets at Great Pipping Cricket Club. And you've all seen the report attached for that. Councillor Marshall, this is your cue to leave. So I will move you to the waiting room. I will come and get you when we've finished. I will try not to forget. I imagine you'll be in there for just a couple of minutes. Okay, John, we'll see you in a bit. Okay, so Councillor Marshall has now left and gone to the waiting room whilst we transact this item of business. So I'll call councillors to speak on this item. Councillor Taylor, I'll see your hand first. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to speak in support of the cricket club on this. I understand that a member of the public has concerns about it, and I've read the report from our clerk, which is very comprehensive, and I do understand that this would be unprecedented, that our £9,000 budget.
But what about seeking that funding?
Excuse me, Chair.
Sorry. Hang on just a second. Sorry, Mr. Gary's iPhone. I've just muted you. This isn't the public participation session of the meeting anymore. So you unmuting yourself and interrupting councillors is disrupting the meeting. Please don't unmute yourself again. I'll just take you off mute again now. Thank you, Mr. Gary's iPhone.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, to continue. Yes, we do have a budget for £9,000, and I do hear from Councillor Riley that our budget will be reviewed because of the coronavirus and the additional pressures there are on our parish. So, but it's not been used so far. So a third of that.
But yeah, but it shouldn't be used. It shouldn't just be given just because it's not being used. It shouldn't be.
Sorry, Gary's iPhone. I do understand how passionate you are about this, and I understand that you've got very strong feelings on this, but this part of the meeting is not for members of the public, and you unmuting yourself is disrupting when you're interrupting councillors. So I gave you a warning before. This is your final warning. If you unmute yourself again, then you may be asked to leave the meeting. I will unmute you now, but please do not speak. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and again, they've already sought match funding, and then come to the parish council, which is the right place to come for that match funding to be considered. So I think because it will benefit Little Pipping as well, and it will hopefully increase membership of a thriving sports association anyway, and cricket really, I think it's very British, so I think we should support it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Just seeing Councillor Day's hand up, and then Mike, did you want to speak as well? So I'll go to
yes, please. I would like to say something about this.
I'll go to Councillor Day and then Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points. I've read the report, very comprehensive report from the clerk. Just to pick up on Councillor Taylor's point, she said that they've sought match funding, but they haven't because they're coming to the parish council for match funding. You know, I think I'm against this due to the fact we've said no to the football club. The amount of money that they're asking for, I think, you know, we couldn't justify giving that to a small club. The other question is how many of the cricket club members are actually people that are parishioners within, you know, the parish, and how many people come from outside the parish. I'd be interested to know that. I'd also be interested to know if we were to give a grant, their finances. So can we see their last 12 months finances to see where they're at, whether they can afford to put any in themselves. I just feel that I wouldn't be happy to give them any money at this stage. I think further questions need to be asked, and they need to probably come up with quite a lot of the money themselves, because I think it's too much.
Okay, thank you for that. I think to clarify the point on match funding, so that they have a grant already, and it's the match funding for that grant that they're now applying for from the parish council. I'd just like to bring the clerk in. We do have the a year's accounts, don't we, as part of their application?
Yes, we do, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, and obviously we'd go through due diligence if we did resolve to give the grant and make sure that everything is in place. So I'll just go to Mike Scott on the phone now, and then I think there's a final comment from Councillor Allen as well. Mike.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would like to speak against this on the basis that the points raised earlier by Councillor Day about the finances. I know you have the finances, but I would like to know, before I make a decision on this, what the reserve status are, because obviously if they are well funded then and above their reserves policy, then they should be contributing substantially towards this. Plus also they have 500 members, and just rough math says if each member contributes £3, that's £1,500 towards the 3,000 they need in match funding. So without any further information available, I would be saying no to this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Scott and Councillor Allen.
Ah, right, sorry.
There you go.
In response to Councillor Day's fairly valid point on the face of it about members of the cricket club not necessarily being from Great Pipping, and I'll declare a non-interest, because any sport that involves balls I'm pretty hopeless at and don't get involved in. But my son-in-law, who lives in Great Pipping, plays cricket. He's very active in cricket, but he doesn't play at Great Pipping. He plays at another village and not Little Pipping, because when he came back to the area, he went back to the village he grew up in to play cricket. And this is very much appears to be the norm. And I suspect that in Great Pipping we have quite a few members who don't live in Great Pipping, and quite a lot of cricketers who live in Great Pipping who play somewhere else. But looking back to when I was younger, sports facilities were something that were provided by local authorities, usually a higher level of local authorities. Well, we don't see that now. People just have to find their own finance and do things themselves. And I think we do have funds for community activities, and provisionally I would like to support this. Now I say in principle rather than provisionally, because it is public money we're putting in, and my provision is that the procurement, if it goes ahead, is as transparent as it would have to be if we were doing it ourselves, i.e. External 3 quotes, if it's possible to get them, and competitive tendering.
Okay.
That's all I have to add.
Thank you for that. And I'm just seeing hands up from Councillor Day wishes to come back, and Councillor Riley. No, Councillor Day, you've taken your hand down. Councillor Taylor. So I think what I'll do is we need to move on quite quickly. So I think I'll go to Councillor Riley first, and then just back to Councillor Taylor just to summarise and wrap up before I call for a vote. So Councillor Riley first.
I'll make it quick. I'm in complete agreement that we should go ahead with this, as Councillor Taylor's already said. You know, we might have a £9,000 budget, but we haven't spent any of it. So I think we should go for it.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. I've heard what everyone has to say, but these are our parishioners. It's their money, and they're asking for some. It may be a small amount of people, but it may be a larger amount once they've got those practice nets. So I propose that Great Pipping Council awards the cricket club the sum of £3,000.
Thank you. So we have a proposer. Can I have a seconder for that as well? Thank you, Councillor Riley. I think because I've heard members of the council speak for and against this, I'm conscious that we just need to make it absolutely clear. So I'm going to move to a vote now, but I'm going to do it by a roll call vote, just so we're absolutely clear and that we haven't missed anybody out. So I'll call your names by alphabetical order by surname, and if you could just unmute yourself at that point and just indicate whether you are for or against or you're abstaining. So first, Councillor Allen, how do you vote?
I vote in favour, subject to the process of procurement being done with the transparency we would expect.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Day?
I'm against. I vote against.
Thank you. Councillor Moody, that's myself. I vote for. Councillor Riley?
I'm voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Scott?
I'm voting against.
Against. And Councillor Taylor?
I'm voting for.
So I'm just going to ask the clerk to unmute as well, just at this point, and I count 4 votes in favour and 2 votes against. Do you concur with that?
I do, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I declare that vote carried, and we will make the grant to the sports club. Thank you very much, everybody. I will just now bring Councillor Marshall back into the room. So we'll just wait for him to join the main council chamber again. Here he comes, and I'll just unmute him. Councillor Marshall, can you hear me, and can we hear you? Hang on, just
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, you're back.
Right.
Excellent. And I hope you weren't too bored whilst you were waiting. Did you have any music whilst you were waiting?
No, I don't do that, just in case I never knew when I was going to be invited back in.
Well, thank you very much for waiting. And just for your own benefit, John, the council resolved to make the grant to the Sports Association.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the next item. It's item 20185. To resolve that members of the public and press be excluded for the following item of business on the grounds that publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted. Could I have a proposer that members of the public and press be excluded? Thank you, Councillor Day, and a seconder. Thank you, Mike. Mike, just to double check, that was you seconding the motion?
Yes, indeed.
Excellent, thank you very much. Could I have a show of hands, all those in favour? And Mike?
Yes, in favour.
Thank you. So we've now resolved that members of the public and press be asked to leave. So you've got two choices at this point. You can either leave the meeting, and if you choose that, thank you very much for your attendance today. It was good to see you. Or if you choose not to leave the meeting, then I can move you into the waiting room, where you'll be for probably 2 or 3 minutes before I bring you back into the meeting. But the only remaining item there is to close the meeting. So I'll leave it to you to decide what you wish to do. Please either leave the meeting now or hang on, and I'll move you to the waiting room. I'll just move members of the public to the waiting room. Thanks, Mrs. Hart. And thank you, Mr. Thomas. And thank you, Mr. Gary's iPhone. Okay, so members of the public are now in the waiting room where they can't see or hear us and can't be seen or heard. Obviously, they can choose to leave from there if they wish at any time. They're not locked in. If they're remaining in there at the end of the item of business, and I'll ask them to come back in. Okay, so the next item of business is 20186. To consider recommendations related to staffing during the coronavirus pandemic, and you've all received a report, and I'd like to call upon Councillor Day to speak to the report, please. Oh, just one thing. I think because of the nature of the business, where we're potentially going to be discussing the clerk's terms and conditions, I think if it's okay with you, clerk, I will ask you to go to the waiting room as well.
That's fine, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So just bear with whilst I do that. There we go. We'll come and get you in a couple of seconds, Leslie. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Day.
Thank you. So we've all had a copy of the report following the staffing meeting with regards to the clerk's hours, and I hope you've all had a chance to read through this. I mean, this time of year anyway, the clerk would normally work extra hours with end of year and the AGAR, but obviously with the coronavirus pandemic, she's been involved in a lot more activities, setting up various groups, things for the vulnerable. So there's been a lot more hours incurred. So I'll keep it fairly short because it's all in here that you've all read.
Thank you very much. So I'll just bring in the clerk first and wait for her to join. It just takes a couple of seconds for people to come out of the waiting room and to join. There we are, there's the clerk back. So just to let you know, Leslie, that the recommendation in the paper was carried unanimously. And I'll let members of the public back in as well. Here they are all joining us. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for hanging on to move on to the next item of business, which is item 20187, which is to close the meeting. But before doing so, I just wanted to say a thank you to everybody really for your forbearance during this meeting. Obviously, we're getting used to it as a council, this new technology and meeting virtually. It's working really well for us so far, and I think we've all been pleasantly surprised how easy it is and how very quickly you get used to doing it. And as the member of the public said earlier on, we'll try to explore ways that we can incorporate this new technology into our meetings in the future. So thank you very much, councillors. Thank you very much to the members of the public that have been with us tonight. Please do tell your friends and neighbours that you're able to join electronically, because we'd love to see many more people at the next meeting. And the next meeting is on Tuesday the 12th of May 2020 at 7 p.m. Again on Zoom, and that will be the annual meeting of the council, so we hope to see lots of members of the public there and all councillors if possible. And finally, take care all, keep safe, and I will now end the meeting.